Welcome back, everyone, to the Frosty Canucks podcast. I'm your host, Jason, along with Steve.
Red button.
Don't hit it again.
I
don't know what that will do.
Again. I kind of want to
hit
it now.
Double record, so I'm just going to have to edit around a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, I don't no idea what that would do.
Joking aside, we were going to start today off with some Canadian news, because we are a Canadian-based podcast. I don't know which one we want to start off with.
Wait, there's more than one piece of news? I thought we were just going to talk about the fact that they made a new holiday, but it's mostly the government patting themselves on the back, because it's not going to be...
It's not news, it's just an introduction topic.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, so like the Canadian government introduced a new holiday that's supposed to be to observe and reflect on all the horrible shit we've done to the Indigenous people here.
Called the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
Yeah, but it's only going to be enforced in federally regulated spaces. I did the math on it earlier, and I don't know how reliable the numbers are, but it's something like less than 5% of the population are going to be able to actually have this day off. And then, like, secondly, this does not actually address anything. It's basically like a big nothing, and then saying, like, oh, look at what we've done.
It really is.
But without actually doing anything. I'm very upset about this for both of those reasons, especially because it's like the government's basically giving themselves like a pat on the back for doing nothing and fucking just being a bunch of useless tits over the entirety of COVID. Like,
No kidding. How many of them are actually going to reflect on anything?
Oh, fucking nothing. They're going to go and use the day to go to their fucking, like, hair salon or the nail parlor or whatever the fucking shit rich people do. I don't know. I'm not rich people, so I don't...
I get the day off.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the fuck
Not you peasants.
The same group of people who, like, fucking have been traveling also, like, not all of them, obviously, but, like, some of the people who are in government positions have been fucking, like, traveling, even though there was, like, travel bans and shit for, like, regular people.
Oh, yeah, like, some of the ones that got caught and been, like, they had, like, stuff pre-recorded beforehand. Like,
yeah,
one of the politicians addressing the people, but it was pre-recorded and they were already in their summer house in, like, Florida or, like, Hawaii or one of the southern countries. It was pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, it was just some bullshit is what it was.
Yeah. Now some of our governments, our provincial governments are going, yeah, COVID's over, guys. 100% over. Delta doesn't exist. What are you talking about? No.
Yeah, I saw that as well, where the Delta variant is, like, very much, especially because, like, 40% of the population, approximately, lives in Ontario. The Delta variant is already hitting us hard, coming up from the States. Well, I guess not just the States. I shouldn't just blame them like it's coming from them only, but certainly that's part of it. The government here is just not acknowledging the fact that it's actually a threat.
They've more or less given up on COVID. They're like, the vaccines, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's the prevailing attitude, isn't it?
In my area, cases were finally down to almost under 100, and then they've already gone back up to 150, and I'm like, okay, it's been like a week, and we've gotten half of those increased. Okay, that's not a good sign.
I have a feeling that this year is going to look exactly the same as last year.
Yeah, looking at the
I meant that
the chart, yeah.
More in terms of how things are going to go. So last year, as soon as the summer months happened,
we died down, yeah.
Well, everything kind of went down because people were doing what they were supposed to do. But then in the summer months, everyone decided collectively, oh, we want the patios to be open and the beaches and all this other shit. And they just left them open because it'd just be too much of a pain in the balls to try and tell people to actually smarten the fuck up and do what they're supposed to do.
Well, it wasn't actually too bad in, like, July and August. It was just as soon as September hit.
It was, like, brewing that entire time.
Oh, yeah, for sure, because we didn't kill it, yeah.
And then as soon as the schools reopened, it was like, it fucking tripled overnight. Because the fucking kids are out here licking each other's faces, and Jesus, kids are disgusting.
They really are.
The amount of shit I saw kids do when I was a camp counselor, and I was only doing that for, like, 2 summers, so I can't even imagine the amount of shit that, say, for example, Ian, shout out to Adventure Rules, Ian, friend of the show. And it's not a shot against Ian's kid in particular. I think that all kids do disgusting shit, right?
That's everyone. Even for me as a lifeguard, I'm just like, the stuff I had to deal with. The number of times I get like sneezed on, shit like that.
Oh yeah, fucking little degenerate gremlins who are raised by parents who don't know how to fucking teach their kids proper mannerisms, so they just sneeze and cough all over you instead of coughing into their sleeve or whatever.
Well, problem is when you're having to hold like their arms to teach them how to flow, and they're like, achoo! And you're like, well, that was unavoidable.
Yeah.
I can't be mad at you or myself.
I'm disappointed in the universe for forsaking me.
And meanwhile, like, my immune system's just like, okay, that checks out. You're good.
Yeah.
Probably got a stronger immune system because my wife kept getting sick. I wasn't. Especially then. I don't know why.
Maybe you just ate a lot of dirt when you were younger.
I had like a sand pit, so maybe. I don't know. Tough to say.
I was trying to think. Overstated how disappointed I am in that. I mean, I put out a tweet earlier today where I was, day of recording, where I was pissing all over the government.
Yeah, I shared that with you like yesterday. And then it was just like, you're like, what? The hell are you talking about?
I spent a little bit more time reading into it and decided a little bit later to be more pissed off about it than I was when you first shared the information with me.
Well, my wife didn't get it off, and I probably will also not
I
get
hate
it off.
that it exists, and I do get it off.
Mm-hmm.
Because I work for a fucking bank. And those are all federally regulated in Canada. So it's basically like working a government job, but you're not working for the government. So there's a ton of regulations in place, but we have benefits that any business that's publicly traded has that the government employees do not have, because we just like make more money, since we're a business that is designed to make money instead of a business that just collects money from taxpayers. Anyway, this is totally irrelevant. So we want to actually get into the topics now?
I suppose. I guess we should start with Matt's question.
Okay. Maz's question is...
It's a short one for once.
I like his questions. You shut your mouth.
No. just
so
joking.
Maz suggested as a topic. It's a topic, not really a question. But there is a rumor that a Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, is coming to PS5. It'll have fucking, what do they call them? What are they calling them? It's some movie term.
Oh, it's not called a director's cut.
Oh, director's cut. That's what it is. Yeah, this one's not called a director's cut, but that's like fundamentally what the question is about. Sony is releasing a bunch of PS4 games, either with or without the director's cut moniker. So basically they're releasing a bunch of, we'll use air quotes, remasters of their games that are PS4 games on the PS5, even though these games would run perfectly fine already on the PS5. Yeah, and they're receiving almost no pushback about it. That's the topic, fundamentally. Did you want to start with that?
Sure. I think this is more of a pattern that Sony has always been doing for the last little while. I had a PS2 probably like 2 years into the, or not 2 years, 4 or 5 years into like the PS3's life cycle.
Okay.
Because I really got into gaming more in 2012, 2013-ish. I didn't really play a whole lot of games on there, so when I played on the PS3, there were a bunch of collections. So there was like the Sly Cooper collection, there was the Ratchet & Clank collection. It was great for me because those were fairly priced. They were $30. You got an HD patch for all those games, but you got them all combined, so it was like $10 a piece, which at the time I thought like, yeah, this is a good deal. Especially since I had just finally jumped kind of ship onto the PlayStation from being also trapped in Nintendo's clutches. Much like yourself, Steve.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was switching over to PC, but it's neither here nor there. It's the same idea.
I meant that we were both stuck with Nintendo, because that's what parents both deemed was what we would get.
Just side tangent for a second. Stuck is a strong word for me, because I actually like, and I still do kind of like Nintendo's games. It was a choice from my end to have Nintendo's consoles. Pokémon was on Nintendo, so that's why I always had Nintendo stuff.
My mother was very adamant about like sticking to the those guidelines from the ESRB.
Oh, my parents were too. I the first time I played an M-rated game was, I think it was Call of Duty. I was at my buddy's house, and I didn't realize it was an M-rated game because well, it's like over time, M-rated games I feel like have been pushing the amount of violence they're allowed to include in the titles.
Sure.
So
no, for sure.
Call of Duty 4 Advanced Warfare, no, Modern Warfare. That's what it's called. It's the one that everyone likes, Modern Warfare.
Yes.
That game it has guns in it. Like aside from that, there's not a lot of graphic violence in it compared to some of the newer Call of Duty games.
Done.
Yeah, it's almost arcadey.
Mm-hmm.
There's no blood spurts. I don't think there's almost any blood in the game at all, actually. So
There might be a little bit, but yeah.
it's not super violent. And then, like Grand Theft Auto was another one that I saw. I was like, oh, this is Grand Theft Auto. I never had a huge interest in playing. I just watched my buddy play it mostly and thought the game was kind of boring. But I still think Grand Theft Auto games are kind of boring. But when it came to actually playing a game that I owned, I didn't end up buying a rated M game until I had a Steam account, actually. Because they don't really display the ESRB age ratings on any Steam products. So I bought a game, and I didn't realize that it was an M rating. Like, when it was on consoles, it had an M rating, and I bought it. And I was like, oh, this game is like full of fucking blood. At that point, I was 20 or 21, I think. Well, since past the age where any kind of violence could have any impressionability on me, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents growing up trying to get Super Smash Bros., for instance, that's like the most vanilla fighting game ever conceived, right?
Yes.
And the first one on the N64, my parents wouldn't buy it because they saw it and it has a T rating. So
did it really have a teen rating?
Yeah, it had a teen rating.
Shit, I didn't realize
so
that.
So did Melee. Yep, at least in Canada it did. So yeah, the original Smash Bros. Was T, Melee was T, and Brawl was T, but by the time Brawl came out, I was a teenager, so I was able to get that. And then Smash 4 is actually E10+.
Yeah,
so
no. Huh.
Although, I think they bumped Smash 4 up to T when Bayonetta came out. because Bayonetta.
Right. Yeah, I guess I have to think about the characters, not the whole, like, there's no blood, there's no...
Yeah, and it's very interesting how the amount of violence in those games has actually gone up over the years, because, like, the animation has improved, but the age rating has actually dropped, even though it's technically more graphic now than it was when it first came out. But yeah, I kind of get what you mean, where it's like our parents were the age rating matters. It's the gospel. Even though the age ratings are mostly bullshit, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, it's always like a guess because they have to review like the game in like 20 minutes with this thing, and it's like, well, what if I just didn't show you a scene that was in there? It's like, oh god, that's not teen, that's mature. Fuck, we screwed up.
Or the amount of violence that constitutes a T versus an E versus an M. Because there's some E-rated games where it's like, oh, they're just like cartoon characters beating the shit out of each other, so that's okay. But as soon as they look like a little bit realistic, then it suddenly becomes a T or an M. Mm-hmm. And if there's any sexual content, that immediately bumps the rating up to at least a T minimum.
Yeah, T minimum, probably mature.
Yeah. What sexualized content is there in this? Oh, one of the characters runs around in a bikini. Is that it? Yep. Okay. America, the land of the free. Except for boobies. You gotta keep those nice and contained because everyone is afraid of them.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Absolutely. Anyway, continue. That was a fucking huge side tangent.
That's fine. My point being that this is just a pattern that Sony's always repeated. I think the main difference, though, being the fact that this is the first one to really have the backwards compatibility. Because the PS3, it did have it for like the first model, I believe, with PS2 and PS1, but then they dropped that so pretty damn fucking quickly.
Yeah, so they could lower the price of the base unit.
Yeah, because they were getting stomped by Xbox and the Wii at the time for being the much cheaper and better alternative than your $600 Blu-ray player.
Isn't it like $700 in Canada?
I don't think they were doing the whole like your dollar shit yet, but I don't know. When I got the PS3, it was like $200.
Yeah, I got it super cheap as well. I barely used it. Right now, it's still at my parents' house. It is a Blu-ray player. That is what it's used for. That's it.
That I feel is an excuse a lot of kids used to get their parents to buy.
It's a Blu-ray player, and Dad knows how to use Netflix on it, so it's a movie box.
Good enough.
Very funny. Yeah. The most important point you raised there is the fact that this is the first time where there actually is some amount of like very real, very easily attainable backwards compatibility. Mm-hmm. You can 100% drop your PlayStation 4 games into your PlayStation 5 and play them.
Yeah.
Provided you have the disc version.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess if you got the digital version, it should be linked to your account, so you should be able to just download it.
I don't think so. Well, if you've got digital games, for sure, but if you've got the physical copies, I don't think so. You're probably hosed.
That's what I mean. If it's fully digital, it should be linked to your account.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
I could see Sony doing some fuckery just to be like, oh, we want you to pay again for it. Because like that's just it. Like Sony is so used to having
no backwards compatibility for the last while.
They're used to being able to charge people again and double dip on releases. I think a really good example of this is The Last of Us, the first. which was one of the first
Yes.
Sony first-party games on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, 2014.
Because it released in... Yeah, I was going to say, didn't the first one come out in like 2013? And then they re-released it on the PS4 like a year later? Oh, cool. I got it right. And one of the benefits that has is that it allows Sony to potentially get double dippers, which I'm sure they did. Mm-hmm. And through doing that, they're going to make extra money on this title. And as we kind of saw with, or at least reports indicated in some capacity, that Naughty Dog doesn't exactly develop games for cheap.
Yeah.
So being able to get those extra sales is actually a huge benefit to Sony because they had to invest a lot of money in whatever product comes out of this particular studio. Because they've spent so long fostering this idea in their audience that
re-releasing is okay.
Yeah, exactly. When a new console comes out, we're gonna re-release the games and you're gonna pay for them again because people, I don't know if people on consoles are just like so unfamiliar with it or they're just stupid. I don't want to just assume that they're stupid. I really don't want to assume that people are just that stupid, that they don't understand that these games will still work and they'll still work well on their new hardware. It's exactly like PC stuff, right? Like I buy new computer hardware, I put them into my tower, and then I can continue playing the games that I already had. I can just maybe bump the settings up on them. Mm-hmm. And that's fundamentally what the PS4 to the like all the new generation of consoles is. It's like that. They went from one set of PC hardware to a new set of PC hardware, and I'm not just saying that because the upgrade is so the same. It quite literally is like a bunch of PC hardware, and then it was upgraded to new PC hardware. Mm-hmm. Honest to God, I think that a big part of why there's no pushback is coming from the fact that the audiences for these consoles have been trained over... You've even indicated this goes back as far as the PlayStation 2, right?
Yeah, well, PS3 to PS2. I don't know many PS2 games that came out on PS1. I don't think they were doing that nearly as much because the PS1 to PS2 was you could notice the difference. And then PS2 to PS3 was quite the difference too. It was just there was a handful of games that they were like, hey, these are our classic games, we're going to re-release them.
Yeah, and they even, with the PlayStation 5, they kind of had an offering where if you hadn't already... Hell, yeah, they did. If you hadn't already...
That PS collection thing that you get.
Yeah, exactly. That you could get if you got a PlayStation 5. You redeemed it on PlayStation Plus.
Yes.
That perfectly encapsulates it. You can play these games 100% fine. There's fundamentally no reason to pay a full or even a reduced price tag for these games if you already own them. I really do think that it stems from Sony has indoctrinated.
Brainwashed.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a smart way of saying brainwash, but they've brainwashed their audience. They've cultivated an audience of people who are so used to seeing this happen because they've gone through it with the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4, and they're going through it again with the PlayStation 5. Over a decade of seeing this, people they've come to expect it, so they're not willing to even think that it should be challenged or it could be challenged. That's my line of thinking with this. Mm-hmm. The other thing Sony might now begin having the benefit of is like the Nintendo Halo effect. Have you ever noticed how whenever EA does something, everyone will bitch and complain about it, even if it's not really that bad? Or even if it's actually good, people will still complain about it? Yeah, and like Ubisoft kind of has the same thing going for them, but then there's some companies that are these virtuous beacons where they can do no wrong. And I feel like of all the companies out there, Nintendo is the king of this. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and nobody. Some people will, like I'm out here being a little piece of shit. I'm saying what I want to say every single time Nintendo does something, right?
Free Melee.
Their core audience will always stand by and defend whatever they do within reason. And I feel like a big part of that comes from their history and their legacy. And now we're getting to a point where Sony has some properties that are well revered that are getting up into the age where that nostalgic feeling is as strong as Mario or Zelda is for some people, right? Mm-hmm. So it might be a case of people are giving Sony the same Halo kind of effect that Nintendo gets with everything because they're at a point now where they have evangelized the company and don't ever see that it can do any wrong.
No, that's 100% fair. I can see people doing that too.
Microsoft's got to wait another 10 years before that happens for them.
Which is so funny because Microsoft's been around for like so long, but
yeah, but not in the gaming space.
Yeah, joined just to chip at Nintendo and Sony just to fumble last generation.
It speaks volumes about the amount of wealth that Microsoft generates as a company when their entire play for getting into video games was them going, hey, we can do this too. We have the money for it.
And we want more.
Another side tangent, but people have been saying, because people are still salty as fuck about Bethesda getting bought up by Microsoft and the new IP only being available on Microsoft's platform. And some people have said, oh, well, Sony should buy one of these Japanese studios. I think the popular ones are Capcom, Square Enix,
or Sega.
And God, I don't even think Sega was mentioned. I think that Konami was mentioned.
What? Oh, yeah, the property's there.
Yeah, well, then, but you think about it, and then you look at the net worth of these companies, and people don't factor in the fact that Microsoft is like super ultra rich as fuck. They're fuck you rich as a company. They have a market cap that dwarfs Sony's because of all of the other things that they do as a company.
Well, I mean, they bought, like, what was that platform, Mixer?
They bought Mixer to try and compete with Twitch, and they
then dropped it, like, 2 years later, and was just like, never mind, fuck it.
They made no fucking money on it for basically 2 years. They have the amount of money where they can support an entire live streaming platform for 2 fucking years, make basically nothing off of it, and then go, yeah, this is not worth our time.
That is honestly still the funniest thing. Them buying up Ninja, and then like he had like I think it was like a 10-year contract or something like that, and he got paid the full amount, like, and he could just go back to whatever platform because Mixer was just like, we're done.
Yeah, Ninja couldn't convert people over from Twitch, and when that happened, Microsoft, like, this isn't worth it. There's no amount of money we can throw at this thing to make it work.
Yeah.
If one of the most popular streamers of one of the most popular games couldn't convert your platform over to having a higher viewership, like a reasonably higher viewership, there nothing was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is, like, Konami, I'm pretty sure is worth more money than Sony is. I think Square Enix probably is too, actually. And some people are probably going to be like,
machines.
Yeah, exactly. Some people are going to question that, but it's not from the gaming side of things for Konami. Konami's they got their hands in a lot of other pockets that are not gaming related. They make a shitload of money off of. And then Square Enix, I believe, because of them getting into gas really early with Final Fantasy XIV, I'm pretty sure that they probably have a much higher revenue stream than anything Sony has, where they're not putting out any titles like that. And they have a struggling hardware business. So
yeah, I think I read the disc one is finally profitable after selling it for a loss for
not even a year. That's pretty good, actually.
9 months, roughly.
That's pretty good time, I would say, for becoming profitable off of a new piece of hardware. Makes me wonder where they cheaped out on it. Because I don't know yet, because I haven't had as much time to fuck around and learn about what's inside of the PS5. But
I don't know. No Canadian has.
Except for Jet. But he had to send his away.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like he's gotten up his back yet either.
I don't think he has, no. I don't know. I should ask that.
I would imagine it's stuck in hell.
Anyway, I didn't have anything else to add aside from the fact that those my two main points were the fact that I feel like their audience has been indoctrinated into this idea of buying the games over and over again instead of realizing that they can just play the shit they already own.
Yeah, I think one other thing I could mention would be the fact that, like, some of the re-releases last generation
included new content.
Well, it either included some new content, or like the DLC was always packaged in, or like the Nathan Drake collection, which had Uncharted 1 through 3, which is so funny that, like, they're doing it again. I want to see a magic trick, it's the same one.
They should include 4 with it this time.
If you look at the image, it says 4, and then it also has the Lost Legacy one, so it's got all the games.
The Naughty Dog Legacy Collection.
But because Sony was losing last generation on the PS3, bleh. But anyway, because they were really the losers of that generation, if you look at the numbers.
Well, until the end of the generation, I think everything kind of leveled out by the end. But
yeah, by the end they caught up with the Xbox. But I think people were using the excuse, hey, this is for all the people that converted over from Xbox to PlayStation platform because they were pissed off with what Microsoft was doing with the Xbox. So that gave them like the first try of like, oh, The Last of Us, oh, this Uncharted collection. What other games that were re-released on this?
I feel like there's probably less people this time around. I feel like there's a very large disparity between the number of people who had a PlayStation and the number of people who had an Xbox in the 1 versus 4 era of consoles.
Yeah, no, I agree. That being kind of my point. Like, this time they're playing the same hand, but it's like...
They're doing the same thing, but the use case isn't necessarily the same.
Yeah, exactly. Who is this really for? Is this for the people who were like, man, the Xbox One had nothing. And I didn't buy a PS4 during that entire time. I just sat there waiting for Crackdown 3.
Oh my god. I'm pretty sure this is for the people who have drank the Sony Kool-Aid so far. Like, if you missed a game, okay, sure, pick it up now when it's got the DLC and everything. But fundamentally, I feel like this play is being supported almost entirely off the back of people who have drank the Sony Kool-Aid so hard, and they go into their fucking closet shrine dedicated to Shuhei Yoshida. They pray to... No, wait, Sean, what's his nuts doesn't work at Sony anymore.
No, not him.
Sean Layton, right?
Yeah.
He's not there anymore.
It was the guy who was like, who plays old games? Nobody. Shut up about that's compatibility.
That dingle fart. Although, to be fair, I guess side tangent into that for a second. I'm someone who actually uses, like, backwards compatibility, at least to some degree, but I feel like people overstate the importance of backwards compatibility. A lot of people who say that they're going, like, oh, this is a really important feature to me, then they fucking, like,
barely
don't.
Use it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Having my stuff all on PC, I can fundamentally download any game that I've had, and I can just play it, which is a big thing. But I play all of my Game Boy Advance games on a DS, and I have for the past 15-ish years, because I don't have a Game Boy Advance sitting around anymore. That's an instance for me where backwards compatibility is actually useful. Or play GameCube games on the fucking Wii. I played GameCube games on the Wii U for a bit. Same deal. Like,
same deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
the only reason that
GameCube went away, Wii was the replacement for that.
Well, the only reason that I can even do that on the Wii U is because they put out that adapter for Smash, and the Wii games are played through an emulator on the Wii U, which means that it can, because it's a Wii emulator, it still runs GameCube games.
An emulator and an emulator.
Well, not quite, but yeah. But I'm actually grateful that, so I don't have to do that anymore, because like Will and Miranda actually have a working GameCube, but I feel like a lot of people overstate the importance of backwards compatibility. It's one of those things that people say is really important, but then nobody fucking uses it. So, I mean, more generally speaking, right? Like, I'm not talking about, oh yeah, this person we know very, very well who listens to the podcast regularly, they use backwards compatibility. Okay, sure. That's like the physical versus digital debate. When you go online, based on the popular opinion from people, you would think that physical games are actually more popular than digital, but the sales data shows that digital games have actually surpassed physical game sales across the board over the last 3 years. COVID especially drove the nail into that coffin. With last year, most profits for like new games that came out, it was like 60-40 split between digital and physical, and most of the physical ones were ordered through services like Amazon rather than bought from somebody who actually went to a store. People are mostly ordering their games through the internet, either physically or digitally. It's something else that's pretty interesting, and part of why like brick and mortar stores are not really selling games anymore that much.
Yeah, I think I read one article today that was 71% of PlayStation games sold in Q1 of this year were digital.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
That's the majority.
Yeah. We talked about PlayStation for a really long time, considering I don't really...
You had 3 side tangents. That's part of
That's
the reason.
true. I mean, some of them were vaguely related. People aren't here necessarily for the topics. They're here for the shit show.
Correct.
I would hope so. I don't think we... Our podcast is kind of it's kind of a fucking dumpster fire, so... I mean that in the most endearing way possible. What's other topics? I know we had one other thing. I just can't remember what it was.
I don't remember.
What was that? Oh, shit. Okay, hold on. Let's scroll to the Discord chat here real quick. Found it. The last thing that I kind of wanted to mention is it's another kind of vaguely Sony related topic, but this time we get to talk about some Xbox stuff a little bit more specifically. So the word on the street was that MLB, the baseball.
Oh yes, this one.
Yes, the baseball league. They were upset that Sony was releasing The Show, which is like the only baseball game on the market.
It really is the only.
They were upset that they were only releasing it on their platform. They wanted to get that cash money flow from everyone, like EA and 2K have with basketball and every other fucking sports thing that EA has. So
hockey, football.
Hockey's the big one here. Yeah, and then FIFA's kind of big across the world, and then football's really big in the States. So it kind of word on the street was that MLB was thinking about terminating the contract with like exclusive contract with Sony as the developer if they didn't get it onto other platforms. So they released it day and date on Game Pass. So it was available on PlayStation and Game Pass same day at launch this year. According to a recent-ish thing from Sony, the show did exceptionally well. It was one of their strongest earners for the quarter they were reporting on, and having it available on Game Pass was a big part of that. Game Pass obviously did not make the money up front, but it made it through microtransactions instead. Side tangent, the microtransactions in the show are apparently worse than FIFA.
Really? I actually don't know much about the show. I never really hear anything about it.
No, neither do I. I defer to those in my friend circle who play sports games, and they unanimously agreed that it was one of the worst, if not the worst, sports game for microtransactions, which I was surprised by.
Dear God, I wouldn't. Yeah, I would not imagine that either.
Yeah, because like no one talks about it. I figured no one talks about it because it's Sony's special little boy, so it gets an exception from being spoken about in a negative light.
Like
America's favorite pastime.
Along with apple pies, yeah.
I really do feel like the only reason that 2K and EA get shit on so much is because it's EA and 2K. And if Sony had...
that's to your point, yeah.
If they had even a fraction of the amount of negative public opinion, then MLB would get shit on every single year for the exact same reason. But it doesn't because they don't, so...
Yeah, I don't know much about MLB. I don't know if it's just a re-release every year with different players. It probably is.
I think it is. Putting a game out every single year that aggressively, it kind of necessitates developing the game like that. So it was very interesting. People were pissing and moaning about it being on Game Pass day one because, oh, my precious exclusive. And that didn't hurt the game's revenue at all. The game actually made more money than it usually does because it was available to a wider audience, which that's like a 2 + 2 = 4 thing. Like, of course, it was available to more people. It sold more microtransactions. It made more money. Makes sense to me.
Okay, it actually is being on Metacritic pretty much the same.
Oh,
at least the most recent one. Similar to
the show 21.
21, yeah. I'm looking at 20 now just to see if there's. Yeah, it's gone down a little bit since then.
4.1.
Yeah.
Love it. Fuck the haters. People are bombing this game because they didn't get it for free on PS5. 10 out of 10. What does the 0 out of 10 review read like? Microtransactions run the whole game. It's the usual same old stuff from all sports games anymore. Big you want to be good, you have to spend more money for the unlocks or spend a lot of time being terrible to build up stubs to buy packs. Why can't we just play a game anymore without needing to buy ourselves the content? This review contains spoilers. Loyal to this game to a fault. While I like the two-way player idea, I don't like that it forced and ruined the story if you don't do it. Should have an option there. No Bowman prospect is terrible. I thought it would be expanded with maybe a 20-game college or high school. I assume that's what the HS is. HS season? Nope. Just eliminated and tossed into the minors with no skin in the game. Before you would want to do well so you could get drafted higher. Nope, now you just get pushed into the story. I hate basketball, but man, is 2K's career mode excellent. I will be So I'm reading this super awkwardly because it's nothing but run-on sentences that keep putting commas where the period should be.
Are we on 0 punctuation?
Kinda. I will be shelving this game, and it sucks because I bought it for PlayStation, not knowing it would be free on my Xbox. Oh, that actually kind of sucks. I actually kind of feel bad for this guy. He couldn't return it and just get it on Game Pass.
Stop paying full price for these games. I have bought every single year. Oh, you poor fool. Of this
Which
game
one are you
since
reading now?
2006, and I'm officially done. Same game every year. Little to no support after the game comes out, and constant pushing of DD cards. Fuck's DD card?
I'm assuming that's the microtransactions.
Probably. Is obviously cash grab. Oh yeah, okay.
Game is awful, almost unplayable, constant lag no matter what you try to do. Period. Don't get me started on, quote, road to the show, end quote. Upgrading your player is locked behind a paywall, forcing you to buy stubs if you want a chance to increase your overall. Period. The other option is having to buy off the game, or buy off the in-game market where players sell everything overpriced. Period.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
I got one more. Been playing MLB The Show every year since PS2 Online. Damn, that's dedication. Last year, I was a top 200 player. I was number 2 for an extended period of time in '08. The change to pitching is unacceptable. I'm selling mine on eBay right now. So sad. My favorite game was destroyed. The new pitching is like it's like masturbation, but more frustrating because you don't get
I was gonna read a copy pasted review from last year, but no, we're stopping there. That was the masturbation one. That's the creme de la creme. We're not gonna sully it with any more of these shitty reviews. Oh my
Gone
god.
are the days of relaxing and playing the show all summer. Maybe next year they will wise up.
It's like masturbation. Oh my god. Sweet Jesus. Oh man. Okay, so with that, are we gonna go for our regularly scheduled break so I can run my cat around?
Yeah, this is like reading your weird porno bot comments on your website.
Oh, yeah, I gotta
frostylite.ca.
I gotta explain that.
Go see his shit.
Okay, go read my shit. The WordPress comment filter, it will filter out anything it thinks is spam. Usually it's pretty good. I haven't had it screw up many times, but I want to say every couple of months I get a few comments that are just like a bunch of porn terms that were smashed together into sentences by an artificial intelligence, and then a ton of scary links. And this 12-mile long comment will be posted on like 5 or 6 different articles. The sentences are barely coherent, and it's just a bunch of like sex terms. I was reading one of them to Jason. All right, no, I think I put the comments into
You put the comments and we both
and then we
both
started
turns.
reading them. Yeah, it just we sounded like fucking robots as we were going through them.
I've been waiting for you to get like a big batch of them again, and just like we'd read that shit off one time.
I got 1 or 2 of them. I want to say like a month or 2 ago, but it was with some other spam ones for
no, I mean like
proxy thing,
you get a big dump of them, and it's just like, okay, well.
Yeah, it just as an example, it'd be something like butt plug, big booty, 18 plus, women, titties, vagine,
Shady Link.
Yeah, Shady Link or some shit like that's.
Make money now.
Yeah, well, it's just I'm pretty sure anyone who's got a WordPress blog for any amount of times has probably run into the same. I can't be the only person who has, but. Yeah, it's very
degenerate. Balls.
Yeah, exactly. No, maybe it is. I'm a black hole for degeneracy. I just bring everything around me down.
All right, break. And we're back from break.
I have sorbet that's flavored like mangoes.
I have water.
It's delicious.
Gonna add some Minecraft water sounds.
All right, games we've been playing.
We're tied apparently this week.
Enough bullshit. Yeah, I have been playing more Them's Fightin' Hurts. A big part of that comes from I really want to play Guilty Gear Strive, and I've said this to you. We were talking after the podcast recording session last week.
I'm not paying $80 for a lobby system that's worse than.
Yeah, well, so, but then like after I spent some time talking about it, and you immediately said. You really want to play this game. And Miranda said the exact same thing. And I do. the game is Butt Rock, the video game, and that just appeals to me on so many levels.
And it checked your box. I thought it didn't have rollback netcode.
It's got rollback,
does.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the big thing for me because I only play online, so I really need rollback. Otherwise, I quite literally can't play fighting games.
That is literally your like one huge check. Like if that doesn't pass the check, it's just a failing grade for you.
I can't play fighting games online without rollback netcode. The thing is, eventually, there's not going to be a lot of people from North America presumably playing this game. Other times I'll play games at like weird hours, so it'll be hours when people from Europe are maybe playing, but people from North America aren't. Fundamentally, I need rollback netcode so that I can play with people around the world and always be able to find a match whenever I'm playing. Even in small ass communities like Fantasy Strike and Them's Fighting Herds, you just go online and you got rollback netcode. It works really well, and you can just, doesn't matter what time of day you sign on, you can find somebody to play a match with. Because I keep thinking about that, I keep going and playing Herds instead because I have Herds already. And fundamentally, I'm just like, I'll play a fighting game. So then I'll go and play.
Scratch that itch.
The fighting game. But it won't go away. So I'm probably going to end up buying Strive. I'm going to see if it'll go on sale because it is a featured game at EVO, which is apparently going on right now. I didn't know that until a conversation I had with Mike earlier today. But
at least on PlayStation, I think I've seen it on sale. So yeah, hold off for a little bit. It'll probably dip.
If I can get like 10%, that would be nice. But it's being played on PlayStation for EVO, which is the only reason why I'm like, crap balls, it might not be on. They might not extend the sale to Steam. But that's why I've been kind of thinking about it and been playing Herds. But yeah, I've still been having a lot of fun with Herds. It's just a fun ass game. I have written a review for it, and that's kind of going to be what will end up being the kind of cap off point for my time with Herds for now, I think. I was going to have that review. That will probably be out either before or slightly after this podcast is live, so go read that. If you're into 2D fighters, you owe it to yourself to at least try this game because it does a lot of things right.
And this review is like after how many hours?
According to Steam, 85, which is about how 70 to 100 hour mark is usually when I end up reviewing fighting games.
Fair enough.
I think it's a really good game regardless of the price, but the fact that the game comes in at under $20 is mind-boggling. It's what it manages to do and then like what it's priced at is crazy. I think the only reason that it's priced so low is because it doesn't have a huge roster of characters, but all of the characters that are there are really unique in their visual presentation and how they use their moves. I mean, for fuck's sake, they're all four-legged animals. How do you make them punch each other? Well, developers figured it out. So it's a really, really, really polished game. I've had a lot of fun playing it over the last several months at whatever capacity I've been playing it.
Breaking in your fighting stick, which I assume you can use that for Strive?
Yeah, it should work for every fighting game. It works on my PC, so if it doesn't work out the box, I can always set the buttons manually, which is another reason why I don't like playing at in-person tournaments, because you have to fuck around with stuff like that. It's just easier to have your own setup on your computer.
Yeah.
The pixel lobbies, which are really cool. The combo trials, I wrote an entire article about. You can go read that.
The salt mines.
Yeah, that's a really cool feature. I don't think I ever talked about the soundtrack in the game, though. The soundtrack's like really, really good. That was actually kind of surprising to me. It had so many like earworm songs in it that really stick in your mind. It's really nice in a game that you're gonna be hearing these soundtracks like over and over and over again as you fight in the same stages over and over again.
Yeah, no, music is very important for all games that you're going to be doing
that have some amount of some amount of repetition to them. One of the things is really, really funny though. It's funny mostly in like this is such like a useless flourish to spend money and time on, but they put it into the game anyway. The soundtrack is dynamic. Each fighter has certain instruments associated with them from their particular theme, and as they start to gain momentum in a match, the level you're in will start to incorporate that character's instruments into the level's theme. It'll shift around what instruments you can hear based on if one player gets particularly good kind of roll against their opponent, which is one of the most just useless things to put into a game, but it's like a very nice touch.
Well, it's like in Smash where like one of the characters is like beating the crap out of all the other characters.
Oh, and everyone like, starts cheering for him.
Wario, yeah. Marth.
But yeah, most of the time I only ever see dynamic music like this in Nintendo games, specifically in Mario and Zelda, where it'll shift the theme. Example, in Zelda Skyward Sword, as you explore dungeons, it will switch the theme if you're in a darker place to sound more somber and more spooky. And then if you're in an area with lots of light, it will change the tune from that spooky bit to more of a lighthearted tone instead. You can see that a lot in the very first temple you go into, which has some like danker spots and then some parts that are actually exposed to the light. And as you transition through the different light levels in the rooms, it'll change the background theme as you're going through it. So it's very interesting to see like a non-Nintendo game do that. I can't imagine that it's the easiest thing in the world to do, but they're like, oh, we'll do it. Whatever. It's still in active development as well, so I got to imagine there's probably going to be a time down the road where I pick it up again and see what's changed, or check out like the new characters that get released, because they are planning on adding at least one more character into the game.
On top of that other DLC character, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta think that
this won't be the last time you hear about herds.
Potentially.
For a while.
Yeah. The other thing is, I feel like a lot of people probably got hung up on the same thing I did with the game, where it's got like a really, really My Little Pony art style. I promise, if you like fighting games, and if you give this game a shot, it's fucking amazing. It's like also a masterpiece for your wallet with a price tag the price tag it's got. So it's, honest to God, it's very hard to beat what's on offer here and what the price is for it. Definitely recommend checking it out. I don't think many of our regular listeners or any of our regular listeners play fighting games, but I think it'd be a really good one to check out. So the last time I did play it, I popped in and I had a number of really, really good matches against people. So I really do feel like I hit my stride with the game, at least. You know, I can't take on the 600-hour chads. It'll just demolish me. But against players who have roughly the same amount of playtime as I do, I can at least hold my own against them and win matches, and sometimes even win the majority of matches. So that was pretty cool.
So you found your stride in order to get into Strive?
Yeah. Haha.
Anyway, it is on sale right now on PlayStation's platform for like 15 to 20% off.
Okay, well,
depending on the version. So
I'm gonna hold out and see if it ever goes on, if it updates and goes on sale on Steam. I have over 10 games in my backlog still from the Steam Summer Sale, so yeah. It's more a matter of like I want to play it, not I need to go out and buy it like right now. So I can sit and wait for a little bit. I imagine that will be pretty fun. I don't know who I'm going to actually end up playing in the game, but it was very funny when I was talking with Mike earlier today and he found out I was interested in Strive. He's like, oh, hey, you know that Milia has an attack that's really similar to Valerie's Rainbow Disc move from Fantasy Strike. And I'm like, oh, well, that might be the first character to look at then. Because Valerie was my main in Fantasy Strike, so. But yeah, the character designs in Guilty Gear Strive are they're so extra. They're so appealing at the same time. I'm very excited to eventually play it, even though I spent a very long time trying to convince myself that it's like the SpongeBob meme, you know, where he's sitting there, I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it!
Oh, that one.
The more I see about it and the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, yeah, this fucking game looks like it's something that I should actually give the time of day to.
Yeah, it looks like it's the next step in the Frosty fighting arc.
Be like a next chapter. I don't want to say that it's like it's a step up from what I've already been playing, but it's something it's something new to experiment with, to learn different systems, to find out what types of mechanics I specifically value in fighting games. Because that's the one thing, when you try out different games from different developers, you can really hone in on what kinds of systems you like in fighting games. And one of the things that actually happened with Herds between its previous update and its 2.0 update, which is when I started playing it, is that they made the game have more, like, higher damage numbers and more resets. So based on my experience thus far, that is how I enjoy playing fighting games. I don't like having to do these ultra chungus, like 40 hit, 25 second combos. I like pressing a handful of buttons, maybe getting a 12 hit combo off and deleting something like 25% of someone's health bar. And it seems like Strive in particular has similar sensibilities in its design, which is why I'm keen on actually trying it out, where older Guilty Gear games were much more combo heavy and instead of having like really high burst damage. So anyway, that's the Frosty, or yeah, referring to myself as Steve, but it's like the Frosty fighting game corner.
Oh, no, corner.
Yeah, no one wants to be in the corner in fighting games where you get your ass kicked. What's your first game this week, Jason?
Beyond Eyes. So this is a game where you play as a girl who's gone blind because of a freak firework accident. Yeah, it starts off very, very morbid. I'm like,
That's pretty heavy.
how common is this?
Is this like an adventure game?
This is kind of like an adventure game. So similar to the Unfinished Swan, like basically nearly the whole level is just you don't know where everything is until you start exploring it because you're playing as a blind character. What's interesting about this is in the first level, it's around her house, and the whole kind of reason that she leaves that area is to go find this cat that's basically acting as her friend because all of her friends have kind of ditched her because of her, essentially her disability.
Yeah, I was going to say blindness is a disability. You're allowed to say that. It's not discriminatory. That is actually what it is.
Mm-hmm. During, like, essentially what is the tutorial level. Not that there's really much to really explain. It's more of like kind of a walking simulator, except it's in third person.
Okay.
But you'll be using cues in order to kind of figure out like where you should go. Like, oh, you hear birds in the distance. Like, okay, maybe that's somewhere I can go.
Based on what you described, is the environment designed? Is it just like a white space, and then as you hear things,
it's a white space.
Fleshes out with objects?
Yeah, but it doesn't get too annoying. It like once you start walking into a certain area, essentially what is in that part of the map will show up. So in like the first level, you're able to kind of do the whole map before like you exit it out. So you can kind of see what everything is, but before it's just basically this empty canvas.
Okay.
Level, so.
And does it fill up with color, or is it like a black
it fills
and
up
white
with color.
Okay.
No, it fills up with color and everything. It doesn't go with the whole like
minimalist look,
more minimalist approach. What's interesting though is the fact that like she hears some of these sounds from earlier, and then the game kind of tricks you because it's like, oh, that's the water fountain, and then you go up to it and it's like, oh, that's actually just a sewer drain or stuff like that. So like certain sounds will be different. So
does a clown grab you when you approach the sewer drain?
No, it isn't it.
I'm a fucking asshole.
No, it's fine. Your character will get like is kind of afraid of this one dog, and then during that time she eventually figures out that the dog is like actually friendly or something like that. But like you can kind of see where it's like for a blind person, you don't know what the hell the dog looks like. It could be like a tiny little chihuahua, it could be a fucking mammoth sized dog. You don't know.
I feel like if you heard a chihuahua, you would know it's a chihuahua.
Okay.
But yeah, it'd be hard to tell the difference between something,
an aggressive dog versus like
or just a medium-sized dog versus a larger dog.
Mm-hmm.
They sound kind of similar. If you're not super familiar with different types of dogs, like it'd be hard to tell the difference between a fucking Saint Bernard and a Retriever and a Collie, for instance, right? Like you'd just be like, oh, it's just a dog. Even though I think all three of those types of dogs are generally very like fair temperament dogs, but still.
Yeah, it's just interesting. You don't really get to see like many games where you really kind of play as a character who's been disabled in a certain terms, because it's usually like it is very limited gameplay. This clocks in at about maybe an hour and a half at most. Well, you're just going through about it was like 6 levels. It's not very long, but
does it explore the mechanics?
It does its job.
Okay, I was gonna say, so for like what mechanics are on offer, it presents a full experience, so it doesn't really matter that it's only like an hour long.
Yeah, it's a solid experience. I enjoyed what I played.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end I wasn't just like, oh god, come on.
Move your asses.
Yeah, it's just interesting, essentially playing as a blind person. The only other time I've ever kind of had an experience like that is I worked as a lifeguard, and as I've maybe mentioned before. At one point, one of our like team trainings was, hey, we're going to essentially put goggles on you. We're going to stuff them full of stuff so you can't actually see, and you're going to kind of experience what it's like to come into this building completely blind. And fuck, is it terrifying. Like losing your sight in general, just like I can't imagine it. If I have to choose, be deaf over blind. The world is a fucking scary place if you're blind.
Yeah, if you can't see.
Being blind for even those 5 minutes was just like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm going to hit my leg off something. Maybe I'm going to fall into this pool for the love of God. Yeah, neat little experience. It's a game I'd say maybe $5 at most.
Try for the right price.
I think it's like normally 10 or so. So
$17.
It's okay.
It's full price. If it was on sale, that might be. Oh, I see. I was picturing it being much more minimalist in my head, but I'm looking at it now, and this is much more involved than I thought it would be. Not that that's a bad thing. I pictured something a lot more, you said, more minimalist in my brain. Neat.
Anyway, what would you like to go on with?
Yeah, so Agent A Puzzle in Disguise is a terrible name. It's an okay game. I picked that up in my second round of Steam Summer Sale picks. It was, I think, like $2 or something, which is why I decided to pick it up.
Yeah, I've seen it on sale on the Switch. It's been about that same price. It goes on sale regularly.
Yeah, it's a point-and-click adventure game. The premise is that you are Agent A. You are hunting down this lady who's going around killing all of the other agents, and you get trapped inside of her house, and it's got a bunch of point-and-click adventure puzzles you have to work your way through.
Was the first agent who died Agent Z?
No, it was your boss.
Whatever.
There is a story. I don't feel like the story is a huge focal point. I don't know. It was fine-ish. One of the things that I thought was really interesting as I was playing through it, and not interesting in like a game is interesting way, it's more like a generalized thing that I thought was interesting, was a lot of the times when I play puzzle games that like have a core concept, and then the levels will explore that concept with different mechanics. So as an example, Baba Is You is a puzzle game about moving blocks around and changing the rules of the levels, and then the specific rules that exist on a level by level basis switch, and new ones are introduced in different chapters, and so you have like all of these different mechanics that you're kind of learning and experimenting and figuring out how they interact with one another throughout your time with the game. In Agent A, the puzzles are nebulous random logic puzzles mostly.
Is it like the Layton series kind of puzzles?
Yeah, I'd say that's a really good comparison. I've only played partially through one of the Layton games. All the puzzles in that are just disconnected, just like one-off. Like here's what the puzzle is. Here are maybe what the rules of the puzzle are. Now solve it. And because it's built that way, the puzzles all have to be super simple because you're not getting introduced to an idea and then having the complexity of that idea ramped up over time as you learn more about it. Instead, it's more like getting a puzzle book that's got a bunch of different puzzles in it, and you just kind of solve one and then you move on to the next one that's completely unrelated. It's like the difference between doing an entire book of Sudoku puzzles versus like a generalized puzzle book that just has a bunch of different logic puzzles in it.
Right.
Kind of like the shit we keep giving to Grandpa to keep his mind moving.
Yes.
That observation was very, like, to me, I was like, oh, that's weird. Cause like a lot of point and click games are like that, where they instead of having a really strong mechanical foundation, they just have like a bunch of random puzzles in them that don't necessarily have anything to do with one another.
Solve this word search. Solve this Sudoku. Solve this hidden object game.
I feel like that's the one kind of concurrent theme that I could actually find in the puzzles. Is there's a number of puzzles in the game that were relied on kind of like finding the hidden object. I guess kind of spoilers, but I don't really think this is a huge spoiler. Well, I'm not going to tag it in the podcast, but if you want to skip this next little bit, skip ahead. One of the puzzles was finding the password for computer, and you have like 10 different letters you can use for it. Miranda, I played this with Miranda, so both of us were sitting together playing the game. And we'd already looked at her cat's name tag, and immediately upon seeing what 10 letters were available, we both knew that it was the cat's name. I mean, obviously we could see the cat's name was in there, but like the letters were so... If you looked at it and you'd already seen the name tag, you would think, oh, okay. Well, I guess if you remember the cat's name, you'd immediately put it together like, okay, this is what the answer to this puzzle is. I did have a hint there because that was kind of random. Or there's another one that involved, we had to get a thing that was stuck out of a drain, and there's 3 different pipes that were all connected, so you had to plug 2 of the pipes, and then
definitely Layton game.
Yeah, style. It's just like there's just no theming that or like
it's very disjointed.
Yeah, there's just no centralized mechanic that actually keeps everything together. So you just have like a bunch of really, really simplistic logic puzzles. And that's fine. It doesn't feel as satisfying to me personally as playing through a puzzle game that actually has mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt more like doing an escape room, but part of the fun with escape rooms is the people you play them with. So I was glad I played it with Miranda because that made the game a lot more fun than just playing it by myself.
Right.
And like I said, the story wasn't super big on it, so a bunch of people, like Kim, I know she's really big into point-and-click adventures. I don't think she would have liked it as much because it didn't have much of a story going on. And the story that was there was kind of like, it's. I would say it ends in a very unsatisfactory way, so...
Is it like sequel baity?
Oh, it's 100%
like
sequel baity. They
Agent B.
No, it is Agent B.
Because
no,
sequel.
100% it's Agent B. That's releasing apparently at some time in the future.
I didn't even know any of this.
And it even like sets up the ending thing. Like once you see the credits, then it plays a scene where like partway through your mission, you send a transmission to Agent B telling them that they're in danger. And then the scene is Agent B getting that transmission that they're in danger. It's like, oh, okay, so the next game's going to be Agent B.
Man, it's going to be 26 games.
I mean, no, but it's fine for what it is. Like I said, though, the most interesting thing about it was thinking about how different the puzzle design is in point-and-click games versus games that are actually considered puzzle games. And I was thinking about writing an article about it, but as I talked about that with Miranda, basically this entire conversation I had with you, I've had with her already, and decided that there wasn't enough meat to actually write an article about it. So it's just very interesting to think about how point-and-click games went from having completely bullshit puzzles to having more logic-driven stuff that's actually feasible to get through, but then there's no mechanical consistency to them at all. From a design standpoint, it's very interesting. That's Agent A Puzzle in Disguise. If you have someone to play it with, I'd recommend it if you can get it on like sale for the $2 price tag I did. Yeah, it's fine. It's a couple of hours. There's only one puzzle in the entire game that's really fucking stupid. The rest of it's pretty fair, I would say. It is a little bit tedious towards the end, though, because most of the puzzles involve backtracking repeatedly. And in a game like Hollow Knight, platforming and fighting, they're the core gameplay loop. So when you're exploring, it's not a big deal because you're still engaging with platforming and fighting enemies. But in a point-and-click adventure game, when you're wandering around a bunch of the time, it's not fun because you're not engaging with the game in the way that the game is enjoyable.
And there's no map to just go here quickly.
No, you have to keep clicking through the screens to get where you're going. So it's like, oh, you got to click all the way through, and then I got to click all the way back, and then click all the way through the next spot I want to go to. I was getting a little bit irritated with it toward the end because I feel like more of my time was spent getting to where I wanted to go instead of actually solving the puzzles. Like, that's the part of the game that was actually enjoyable, right?
Yep.
That's it for Agent A Puzzle in Disguise. Terrible name.
Well, I got Untitled Goose Game.
I fucking hate that game. Let's talk about it.
My wife has been bothering me about that game for so long. One of her friends had it, and Sarah really liked it, and I was just like, okay, I will get it on sale when it's slightly more reasonably priced. Here, it's like $27 or something like that.
Holy fuck! There's no way it's that expensive on Steam.
We can look.
It's $22.79 on Steam.
Okay, still expensive.
Fundamentally, it's $20 US. God, it's like almost $30 in the fucking Switch. Holy shit.
Yeah. It finally went on like half price, and I was like, okay, that's reasonable. I will finally pick this up. She's had a much more fun time than me. For me, it was just like, man, I really am just a
bastard
big old
goose.
In this
yeah.
Game. Listeners who are not from Canada, our geese are fucking assholes up here.
Yeah, Canadian geese are fucking... They're where all of our hate and rage goes.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, we're so sorry to everyone else, but like for geese, we're just like, fuck you.
The hissing cobra chickens.
Yeah, I don't know how many you had around your university, but we had so many.
There was no geese at the college I went to.
We had geese.
They live in the park, though.
Every fucking where. Sometimes you're just like, I'm gonna take the long route to get to class because there's a wall of geese, and
I don't want to deal with them.
I don't want to fuck with the geese.
Yeah.
If you're driving, you have to stop for the geese and wait for them to all cross and all their kids.
Fuck that shit. Run those motherfuckers over.
Everyone has to wait. It's...
YOLO!
I think it's almost more socially acceptable to like hit a pedestrian who was in.
Oh yeah, it probably would be
like
more
jaywalking than it is to hit a goose.
Hit a line of geese. Good lord.
Pretty much.
That's so Canadian. That's so dumb.
But you agree with me, that's the truth.
Yeah, generally speaking. If there's like a dedicated line of foul crossing the road.
Oh, and they take their sweet ass time. You're
fuck.
like, I'm gonna make it to work, and like, I think I've gotten to use that excuse twice in my life, where I'm just like, Jason, you're late by like 10 minutes. I'm like, Geese.
Yeah, just Geese. No context, Geese.
No questions asked.
Yeah. That's the thing that no one questions, the Geese. Okay.
Our country's so weird. Anyway, Untitled Goose Game. Yeah, you play as a goose, you fuck with around a bunch of people, you do a bunch of miscellaneous tasks.
That is the game.
That's the game in a nutshell. And at the end, you get this bell and you annoy every single person on their way back from the end of the game to the beginning as one climactic ending. There's a bunch of extra bonus ones that I actually think are a little bit more interesting, that like kind of challenge the player, like, oh, go from this one area with like the soccer ball to this area and like score a goal. I think those ones are kind of neat because for the most part, the tasks that you get are like all enclosed in the area. So you can get through the entire game and just be like, I'm going to this area and I'm done. I'm going to this area and that's it. And then move on. The ones where you have to kind of, you think about it and go around doing extra ones are a little bit more complex and they're interesting. And those all, you can unlock those during your main playthrough until you reach the end, or they're unlocked once you finish that and like they're all shown like what you can do. The tedious one is doing all the things in 6 minutes. Some of them are really straightforward to do in 6 minutes, and some of them you have to rely on the AI to not be like a complete dumb fuck about it. So first one is the gardener, and the gardener will just do whatever the fuck he wants. Sometimes you're just like, oh man, I got like almost everything done, and I just need the gardener to do this one thing, and then he'll just be like, I'm gonna do my own thing, and you're like,
fuck this shit, I'm out.
Well, fuck, the 6 minutes is up. I guess I'll have to try again.
That sucks.
Yeah, it did suck. That was the one that took the longest to try and do. You can reset each of the levels and then just start over again. Like, so you can have infinite amount of fun. I think this is an okay game at best. I don't see what all the hubbub was about. Memes. I never saw it before.
It's just meme potential, that's it.
They succeeded.
My question to you, Jason, is what motivated you to continue playing through after the credits and doing the extra challenges? Because both Miranda and I got through the game, and like she played it and didn't say anything to me about it, and then I played through it. And I afterwards was like looked at her and said, that was a generally unpleasant experience. And she's like, yeah, I don't understand what the fuss was about. So I didn't feel the need to continue playing it because I thought it was not worth the time to continue playing.
I think the bonus tasks like took maybe about like an hour at most to do, so not a whole lot of time. The reason why,
gotta get my money's worth.
Yeah, Sarah kept bugging me about like, how do I solve this? I'm like, I haven't played the game. You're playing it for the first time.
So you had to go through to help your wife, is what I'm hearing?
I did that to just be like, yeah, okay, do this.
Jason is the world's best husband. Confirmed on the Frosty Canucks, episode 24.
I get her wine when she needs it.
Oh, Lord. But yeah, I feel like a big part of this game was that it took off a lot with, and people might get angry if I say this, but it took off a lot with the memers and it took off a lot with the casual crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see much value in the experience that was provided. I didn't think it was very fun. I didn't think it was very entertaining. You're just a bastard goose, and that's the game.
It's just okay. And yeah, I know you think it's below okay.
Yeah, I didn't find it very fun to play. I did have it listed in my top 5 worst games of I say it probably wasn't 2020. I think it was 2019.
It was 2019 because it was at the Game Awards when you could still go to the Game Awards.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. Now I gotta actually look up. I want to see what ranking I put it at. I probably put it at 5. I don't think it was offensive enough for me to put it any lower than that, but we'll see.
Just your honorable mention, basically.
Yeah, fundamentally, yes. Here we go, the screaming SpongeBob fish. I love the banners I make. They're so stupid. It was number 5, the Contentious Opinion Award, for a game that everyone else liked that I didn't like. Hence, it's contentious. I'm sorry, but I don't understand what anyone sees in this game. It's charming for about as long as terrorizing the gardener lasts, but then devolves in repetition. You're made to complete a literal checklist of tasks, all of which are fairly simple. This doesn't make the gameplay particularly satisfying, and unlike other adventure games, there isn't an accompanying story to keep you moving forward. You're just a goose being a bastard. One thing that can be said about Untitled Goose Game is that you can never truly be sure which game will enjoy success as memes, or which games will enjoy success as memes. There we go. Untitled Goose Game. My opinion is still pretty consistent, even without having read my fucking shit until just now. Huzzah.
Yep.
God, that's not the worst game this week, is it?
No, it's not the worst game
Oh,
this
wait,
week.
no, I still have to talk about Sundered.
I still have to talk about one other one, but we'll move on to you.
Alright, I'm gonna do the good, and then I'll do the meme, we'll do the last, we'll do the worst for last. Disc Room. I have a review coming out next week. You can read my thoughts there, frostylate.ca. But on a more serious note, I played Disc Room this past weekend. It's fun as hell. I was not even sure what it was about. I just knew that Mark Brown recommended it at one point at the end of one of his videos as like a, hey, go check out this game. It's neat and weird. And I'm like, okay, that's enough of a reason for me to check it out. It's like a bullet hell style game where instead of it being like levels, you've got to survive and shoot some stuff. You're just put into like a room and there's discs everywhere and you just have to survive for as long as you can. And that's the game.
Oh, okay.
And it does...
And now is this like third person or first person or what?
It's top down.
Oh, okay.
With like really cartoony style graphics. There's different types of discs that function in different types of ways across different levels. There are objectives in some of them, which not all of them involve surviving. Some of them involve dying to a certain number of different types of discs.
For experience or what?
No, the map is designed as like a giant plus, and every room you go into will have adjacent rooms, and as you complete certain objectives, then the doors to those adjacent rooms will open up. So you can spend a bunch of extra time unlocking all of the adjacent rooms, or you can just shotgun straight through to the end. It's like a very neat game. It's extremely satisfying to play. The core gameplay loop is so compelling that it's really hard to not go, oh, I can do a little bit better this time. Fuck you, I'm going to get a new high score. And then just keep playing levels over and over again because you keep thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to get a high score, like a better high score this time. A big part of what also helps with that is that the developers were not stupid enough to just expect you to just constantly want to beat your own score. They have included what are some reasonably good high scores in every single level, so you have something to beat, and it's at times it was actually earned by one of the developers.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because,
so it's one of those things where there was one level that I spent an hour on just trying to beat the developer's high score on it. I didn't end up beating them on that level. There was a couple of other levels that I beat them on that I didn't spend even remotely as much time on, but I looked at it and was like, oh yeah, I could beat the developers in this level, and then I did. So it's like a very fun game. I think by recontextualizing how because like most bullet hells are, you have to survive or like beat a level, and the level has a set number of challenges that happen in a particular order. That's how like a lot of shmups work. Where this is just like, here are these blades, like these discs, and they function a certain way based on what type of disc they are, and that dictates, like your knowledge of that will dictate how you want to move or approach a particular level, and then it's just a matter of surviving for as long as you can to get a new high score. It's like a really simple game. It's not very long, but it's very compelling for as long as it lasts. It's very snappy. It's just a very fun game to play. I think two of the developers who worked on it worked on Minute, so that also had kind of a pretty snappy gameplay loop to it. I wasn't as big of a fan of that, mostly because I got frustrated by not realizing that R was a reset button, so there's a lot of time that I wasted in Minute waiting for the data reset, because I was a dumbass. This is a very satisfying game. You play till you die and you get high scores and you just try and beat other high scores. It's worth a look for the right price. I think it's only like $15, normal price. But it's definitely one that if you're kind of dubious on, maybe get like a $10 or $5 price tag. But it's absolutely worth checking out. Just kind of dick around with it and see what it does and how it does it. It's short enough and cheap enough that I could justify buying it as this is a neat type of game, and so I would also recommend it on the back of this is a neat game that people should check out. It's only on Switch and PC. Definitely check it out if you have the ability to play on either of those platforms and can pick it up on sale. It's very, very interesting.
That does sound neat.
And then like also I'm gonna have like a review next week, so if you want like a little bit more detail, read that. Although I'm pretty sure that everything I just said kind of paraphrases what I wrote in that review, but go read it anyway. I need the views. FrostyLight.ca.
It's your crack.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, so last time we were talking about Pokemon White. Now I'm talking about Pokemon White version 2.
How did you find that?
I haven't finished it yet. I'm going to the 7th gym.
Okay.
But it's fine. I'm playing it at 4 times speed, so...
Emulator then?
Yeah, and it's going really, really fast. So I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I think I've really only spent about 6 or 7 hours at most with it, so...
Yeah, because you can streamline all the grinding.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
I would estimate that to be true.
That game needs to be played at 4 times speed to be fun, especially the older games.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a much better job with the more recent games like Pokemon Sun and Shield.
I would agree with that as well, but most people would get very angry after hearing that because, the games aren't difficult. Games are never difficult. You were just bad at games. Don't at me. Actually, you can't at me. I'll fucking die on this hill.
This is the hill you die on. But yeah, no, it's fun. I can kind of see where it really does do the same-ish story beats, other than Team Plasma being split up into 2 groups. One being like, hey, we know we did a bad thing, and the others being like, we did a bad thing.
They're doubling down on it.
Bad things.
Yeah.
We love doing bad things. We're not giving up our Pokemon.
Yeah, some are remorseful, and others are just like, no, we're going to double down on it.
Yeah, I do find it funny when they're like, I stole this Pokemon from 2 years ago, and you fight it, and it's like, it's level 30. I'm like, what have you been doing?
Nothing, apparently.
It's just so funny to me.
Do you like the fact that the Pokedex in that game is greatly expanded when compared against the original Black and White games?
Yes, having the whole shebang at the beginning is much better. Mm-hmm. You can make a party that's a lot more unique and
diverse, yeah.
Be diverse and your fan favorites. Yeah, I was constantly switching at the beginning what I was getting to make a pretty robust team, and I still have quite a bit of a different team than the game I played in the first one.
That is the first Pokemon game where I ditched my starter immediately.
Yeah, I've been tempted to do that, but I haven't.
I caught something on the first route, and then I immediately put my starter in a box and never, so I had a level fucking 6 starter. That was...
Man, that's unheard of.
That's how I played the rest of the game. So, the starters in Gen 5 are all very, very bad from a usability standpoint, and I'm not attached to any of their designs to the point where I actually wanted to use any of them. I don't mind Snivy, but...
That's the one I picked.
Serperior's okay-ish, and with Contrary, Serperior is actually, really good from a competitive standpoint. But just in general, I found all 3 of this... Serperior is just too weak a lot of the time to be... So, the battles are really tedious using it, because it's better as, a stalling Pokemon. And then Samurott is a glass cannon for some reason, and the Chubby Pig one is also, really easy to roll over. I didn't like using any of them in the original games. I took Snivy again, but I just ditched it, and maybe I caught an Eevee or something. I don't know. I caught something in the first route or 2, and then I used that instead. And this was also the game where I caught a Zubat and used it on my team seriously instead of ironically, and I really liked it. Which is where my whole fascination and love of Zubat came from. I caught a Zubat and became really attached to it in this particular game, because in Gen 5, it was the first generation where Zubat's move pool is a complete trash. It only took over 10 years, but they finally made Zubat go from being a fucking meme Pokemon to being a legitimate thing that can actually do stuff. I had a Crobat on my team, and that Crobat fucking kicked the shit out of a lot of that game. I think I also had a Flygon on that team as well. Flygon's a cool Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to find a decent Pokemon that'll be Dragon, but I might go with that again.
I don't actually know if many were added from the base game.
But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It is really, really funny when the game has the same story beats. Oh, your mom's gonna call you on the same part of the route. So I'm noticing a lot of parallels, because I know this is essentially just a version 2. It's a sequel, but it's also didn't play the first one. Here's a better experience of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also the first game where they finally ditched the whole, like, we're going to have a third version.
Yeah, instead they opted for, like, direct sequels.
They did direct sequels, and then for the other games, they just didn't. Like, I was still expecting, like, Pokemon Z for, like, the X and Y.
Yeah, it's actually very surprising to me that nothing came out for that, because they did do Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, so it's not like they completely ditched the concept, it's just that they never actually released it.
And then Sword and Shield, they just opted for DLC for the first time.
Yeah, which makes sense given the just what is available hardware-wise to them, and how the market has shifted over time.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I recommend just playing with the 4x speed on an emulator.
Yeah, do it on the emulator.
It's so much nicer, and saves you so much time. The running animation is fine, is good. Healing doesn't take a whole lot of time anymore. Like, a lot of the animations that I'm just like, oh god, this lasts way too fucking long. Just, alright, on to the shit show.
Alright.
Sundered.
Yeah, Sundered's a piece of shit, don't ever play it.
Why?
It's a Metroidvania roguelike, and if those two terms didn't immediately already turn you off, I'm going to turn you off of the game in a couple seconds. The game's map is designed in such a way where there's key rooms that are in the same spots every single time, and then there's big blocks of amorphous space where rooms are randomly rejigged and configured. So the roguelike aspect of it is that the pathways between each of the major rooms is randomized every single time. Which honestly doesn't do a whole lot of anything besides just make it kind of confusing to get around unless you're constantly looking at the map, which is annoying because I usually navigate these games mostly without use, or I'll like look at a map and be like, ah yes, I need to go here on the complete opposite ass end of the map, and I'll just navigate off of remembering what the map actually looks like. But in this, you can't really do that because it's just random garbage every single time. The levels really do feel like a computer generated them, and they're not very well designed, I would say. Because they're also generated by a computer, they're so homogenous that it's basically impossible to remember any distinct details. Everything just kind of blends into one another. It's really not that good.
So you like hit a lot of dead paths or something like that, and you're like, ugh, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's just like a lot of times where it'll just create these fucking routes that you're like, there's literally no reason to go down this. That's like not even the worst aspect of the game though.
Oh no.
Because they've designed the maps to be procedurally generated, they also didn't want to like throw enemies onto them because that's more coding work. So instead, enemies kind of just randomly spawn in and attack you from everywhere.
Oh god.
They can attack and move through walls, which is AIDS. But what's worse is that most of the time it's just like small groups of enemies, but I want to say every 5-10-ish minutes, a horde happens. And this is when the game just bombards you with enemies for the next 3 minutes, and it just doesn't stop. This is where the game's biggest problems start to rear their head. The game is by Thunder Lotus, who made The Wonderful Jotun, and I know I haven't played it and probably never will, but a lot of people really liked Spiritfarer that was released last year. Those games are both really, have really nice visual styles, just the way the hand-drawn art looks. And Sundered looks really nice too. The problem is that when you have a boatload of enemies all coming in from literally every direction because they don't care about the walls, you very quickly end up with a scenario where you can't see what's going on because there's too much really detailed, overdrawn shit on the screen that's just dogpiling you.
There's no visual clarity. Okay.
Yeah, there is zero visual clarity in this game. The character blends into the enemies and the background way too easily.
Okay, you need to be a bit more distinct.
You know that the developers know this is a problem because post-launch, they've done a number of updates, and one of the things they've added that wasn't in the game at launch is that when you're in boss fights and the camera zooms way the fuck out, they added a little purple marker above your character's head just so you can see them. And you can enable that same marker in the settings so that it's always on, so you can actually see your character at all times instead of losing them frequently, which is something that I didn't even think would be in the settings, but I found it toward the end of my time when I was becoming increasingly frustrated with completely losing my character in these giant hordes of just what the fuck is even happening. It could use higher levels of color contrast. It could make the enemy designs less elaborate. It could have used the background just better in general. The character could just be, like different types of colors or a different design or something, so they stuck out more from the background. It's fine when there's no hordes going on, but as soon as the hordes happen, it just becomes like visual diarrhea, and it's impossible to parse anything you're looking at. And the game's also super fucking punishing, at least at first. It feels really, really, really bad when you die because you just sit there like, I don't even know what happened. And then in the later game, it starts to have kind of the same problem again because the enemies, for some reason, instead of just being made to be like harder to deal with, are bigger. So they just end up taking up more of the screen real estate. So it becomes even harder to parse what the fuck is going on as your screen is just filled up with needless amounts of information that don't convey anything to you.
Visual diarrhea.
It's really bad. I was legitimately surprised that the studio that put out Jotun, which I think is a phenomenal game, put this turd of a game out. From what I remember hearing when it was first released, it got across the board critically panned. They've updated it a lot since then, and I think some of the quality of life changes they've added have made it, like, it wasn't completely terrible, but when it was bad, it was really bad.
Do they have, like, a tendency of, like, releasing on, like, PC first and then porting it to everything else once they kind of patch everything out?
I feel like that's true, because they did that with Jotun, and I think they did that with Spiritfarer.
I'm looking at reviews.
Is the PC one really, really bad, and then on console it's like okay?
PC 74 on Metacritic.
I mean, the fucking Mass Effect Andromeda got a 70, so that speaks volumes about what a 70 means.
The rest have, like, they're a little bit higher. Actually, not the PS4 version, that's less, but an Xbox One only had 3 reviews, so Metacritic doesn't even aggregate them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not even gonna give you a score then.
Oh well, whatever.
It's, like, fun when it works, and it's extremely frustrating when it doesn't work, and it doesn't work more often than it works. One of the other things that's really not great is that the visual stuff is also a huge problem in the boss fights, because the artistic direction was clearly focused on making the bosses look crazy and big, and kind of like they are in Jotun, but in Jotun, the visual design is just so clear that it doesn't matter that your character is kind of small. It's always really easy to see where your character is, because, things like color and spacing and lighting and all this other shit are used, and I just don't understand.
Isn't the point that you're only fighting, like, the one enemy, though? In that game?
That is also true, but in this, the bosses you're sort of fighting one until they summon ads, which does happen. But yeah, it's just, like, very surprised that the same studio that put out this, like, what I consider like a masterclass in visual design and boss design and speaking through mechanics and, like, teaching the player without having to tell them stuff. You just use the level design to do it. I was really surprised that the same group of people put out Sundered. It's so amateur by comparison, or even without Jotun existing, it's so amateur that I couldn't even believe that the same group of people conceived and created this game. It does not compute at all. I can't understand how this group of people put up this game, Jotun, in 2015 and then shit out Sundered in 2017. It feels like it was rushed to market, and, like, a lot of the ideas in it are really not well thought out. And then, like, the art is just overdone in a lot of places that it has no business being done to the level that it's done. Kind of to me, like, they had... And this is conjecture, so this is like tinfoil hat time, so everything I'm about to say is
they kind of got into, like, a developer PAL kind of situation.
Yeah, I feel like the art assets were done for a game already, and they figured out that whatever they were trying to make did not work, and they had to pivot into something else, and they pivoted into this because they were able to code it quickly, and it could use the majority of their existing art assets.
But then cohesively, that doesn't work together within the full product.
Yeah, it just doesn't work on the same level. Just having, like, DMC style aerial combo juggling shit with a character who's super small and who frequently blends into the background. So you're like, oh, where am I? Where are the enemies, like, getting smacked right now? Because that's the only way I can keep track of my character. Oh yeah, the other thing is that a big part of what makes the visuals not work is, on top of all the other shit I just said, the camera's not centered on your character. Which is just, like, the most fucking batshit design decision I think I've ever seen. basically every hack and slash game that I have played, the combat's like very hack and slashy. The camera is always perfectly centered on your character, so you just have to look at the center of the screen and you always know where your character is. And almost every platforming game I have played that is like very high intensity will also keep your character centered in the screen. Hollow Knight usually does that, but in boss fights it actually breaks that and locks the camera in place on the boss arena.
Mm-hmm.
But the Hollow Knight has such a high level of contrast in the background, and the projectiles and attacks also have such a high level of contrast that it's always really easy to see what's going on.
Well, and your character's always big enough for the
Yeah, where in this the character was tiny, they weren't contrasting enough from the environment, and the camera was never centered on them in combat or in boss fights, so I had no idea where the fuck they were. Or at least in boss fights they had the fucking thing over top of their head, but like I said, it's very amateurish. I have actually no idea how this studio put out such a terrible effort after putting out what I consider to be a really good first effort in Jotun. Not even just a first good effort. Jotun's just a good game in general. Sundered is a piece of shit. These guys are out of Montreal, Canada, and if I ever visit Montreal, I'm going to find their offices and I'm going to take a shit on their doorstep.
Well, don't do that.
I'm going to take a shit on their doorstep.
Bonjour, everybody.
There's so much potential, and that's why it's so frustrating. There's like so much potential, and like I said, when it works, it's actually really fun. It's just that it doesn't work a lot, and it's really shitty that there's so many just baffling design decisions, or maybe they weren't design decisions. Maybe that's why they suck so bad. Just result in this really shit tier product that I don't think anyone should play. I got it for like $2.50 on Steam sale. Don't put yourself through it. There's better ways to spend your money. Give it to a homeless person so they could go buy some crack cocaine.
All right, on to my shit game then. There's no transition. I played a game that one of my coworkers had suggested a really long time ago when it came out. And
fuck.
Yeah, we're no longer friends after that. It's called A Knight's Quest.
I'm going to shit on Thunder Lotus's doorstep and you're no longer friends with your former coworker.
Pretty much. This game, I was told, was like, oh, it's like a 3D Legend of Zelda game, like on like a budget, and it's the most unpolished turd I've ever fucking had the displeasure of playing.
It's like knight as in knight with a sword, right?
Knight with a sword, you go around, you do essentially what is like 3 temples. You get weapons from each of them that have the same power, like, or have powers based on the elements. So you have like an ice one, a fire one, and a wind one.
It is not on Steam.
It is not on Steam. It's only on Epic.
Oh,
still,
what the fuck?
It's from 2019 though.
Oh, so it's so much of a turd it didn't go downstream.
It didn't
from the
go
Epic
down,
Store.
And I'll explain later why it probably never ever came out on Steam. I have run into so many kind of graphical issues and like gameplay almost breaking bugs that I have so many clips that I'm kind of putting together a little mini montage of all the shit. The writing is just fucking awful. I also have almost have a mini video out for that that'll explain more, but like the characters just say the weirdest things, or like in the first town none of the characters will even talk to you, and then you get to the second town, like every character will talk to you, but they've got the same 4 lines, and it makes absolutely no sense when one of the characters is saying, I love capitalism, and then you go to a little kid character, and then they're like, I love capitalism, and I'm like, what?
What the fuck are you talking about, child?
Like, every character will, like, say that, or say some of their lines, and it's like, oh, grind boots. I only had to walk here to get here, get on my level, but there's a huge chasm in the way, so it makes absolutely no fucking sense that the dialogue is, or what's written is just verbal diarrhea.
Sorry, just one of my biggest criticisms with Epic is that it doesn't have user reviews, and I tend to trust those even if they are sometimes really stupid and shitty. It does have a ratings thing now, but it's only from professional critics. Critics recommending this, 36%, top critical average, 63, and open critic rating of weak.
I know. I went into it blind because I was like, I'm going to wait for this to go on a reasonable sale. So I don't waste like $5 on it instead of like 20 or so. So
the highest review it has on Open Critic is an 8 out of 10. Most of them are around 6 or below.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting much from this. I was just but it is such a fucking long game.
I mean, it looks like it should be really cool based on
But
the
it
trailer.
isn't.
It's just because it's like a buggy piece of shit?
It's
Is that
just
like
a
the...
buggy piece of shit. I did like one kind of down smash like move, and I did it close to a wall, and I was just stuck there permanently. I had to quit the game in order to get out of that animation.
Sweet
There are
Jesus.
times where my character like fell in a weird way off of like one of the grindy things, and it just fucking T-posed. It's the funniest shit. I was laughing at the beginning, but the reason I'm mostly
Glitches are funny until they're not funny anymore.
Yes, and we're gonna get to the glitch that I fucking despise this company for. So there's a part where you have to save these 5, like essentially tiki like warrior things from this one village in like one of the later dungeons. And keep in mind, I had been playing this game for probably about 15 to 20 hours. I don't really know what the full playtime was, but I'm guesstimating that. And I saved all of them, and then kind of similar to, like the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, where you had to save all the monkeys, like they gather around and then they open up your path to the boss, essentially.
Yeah,
that was the thing. So I thought, oh, that's clever design. So I talked to them, they unlocked the path, and then I realized I was at half health. So I went to go save and like stock up, and I knew I had gathered something for a quest line that I had done. So I was like, I'm gonna go do that. So I come back, the path is no longer open.
What the fuck?
So I'm like, okay, I guess I just have to talk to these characters, and they're like, thank you for saving us. And I was just like,
oh my god.
Am I locked out of getting through the path? And there's only one save, so I'm pretty much
abandoned this, right?
I abandoned this.
Okay, good. Holy shit.
I am so mad. I ended up looking for game-breaking stuff, and sure enough, it was known by the developer back in November of the year it released in 2019, but they never fixed it. And it'd be a fucking easy fix, because all they would have to do, I have to imagine they'd have to do is just make it so that the code was just like changed to always have them do the little animation thing to unlock that. Like just have them do that always. Just change that little piece. I can't imagine that would be that hard, because I was thinking about it and going like, logically all you have to do is this.
So...
But they never fixed it, because I'm sure this didn't sell all that well.
Yeah, so I'm going to do... I just did some investigative journalism, because I'm a real games journalist. I found their website, and I know it's their website because I went to their Twitter, because I couldn't believe it was their website. On their Twitter, they do have a picture of the thing. Mm-hmm. So this is their thing. Jesus Christ. So like the banner art is of their hero game, but here's why this is crazy to me.
I have seen
this website,
Twitter profile.
They don't even have the fucking game on it.
No.
The most recent thing on their website is from this year, where it says some of their like old mobile games is being re-released in a remastered collection, but like the previous post is from 2015. Their Twitter account, which has a picture of the fucking art for their Knight's Quest game, It has 9 tweets. The fucking last tweet on it was announcing Strike Force Heroes 3 in 2015. They're out of Toronto.
Yes.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to that point. They're Canadian based. No, so disappointed. We've had 2 Canadian stinkers this episode. We're sorry on their behalves.
You're a genius. I would not have even made that connection. Jesus Christ. I can't believe it. My mind is blown to shit. I cannot believe on the games section of their website, they don't have this game listed. Chives, get the fuck off my desk. This is blowing my mind right now. What the fuck?
I did it on a coworker's recommendation. I think this was a elaborate
April Fool's joke?
April Fool's joke, and it's finally paid off 2 years later when it was reasonably on sale.
I can't. I'm just looking at their older games too. This is like so. It's more involved. I'm not kidding. Their other games look like Flash games. I wouldn't say dog shit. They look like the kind of shit I would play on like a Flash game website. But
okay, fine.
But yeah, this is like fully 3D, whatever the fuck, and it's just like where, what, how, why? I have so many questions. I want to interview these guys and figure out what happened. Well, after hearing what you've said and then just seeing this other stuff, I have so many questions that I actually want answers to with regard to this game.
I have to imagine it didn't turn a profit, and then because I don't know if Epic charges for patches or not, it might.
If they do, they're dickheads, because Valve does not charge you to patch your game. You can just fart out whatever you want.
I think this game's on the Switch and the PlayStation. I don't know if it's on the Xbox, but...
And on there, you need to pay for patches,
on there you'd have to pay for patches, so...
If it's not online, you don't have to keep them synced up, so you can always patch it on PC, and then maybe have the word of mouth improve. I have to imagine that, I don't know, if this is an Epic exclusive because Epic paid them money, then they made their money back on that basis alone. Because that's how Epic does business.
Yes,
like
no, for sure.
A buddy of mine, like I said, he works at I think I've maybe said this before, but he works at the studio that made Foregone, Big Blue Bubble, and they took an Epic exclusivity deal as well. And I kind of asked him, like, hey, so I know this is probably under an NDA, but that deal is keeping the lights on, right? And he's like, yeah. It wasn't in like a bad way. It's just like, well, we took the exclusivity deal because it was too good not to take.
Right.
Like, it made it so that this game was going to be a financial success for that studio on the basis of they wouldn't have to make any of their or not a lot of their principal investment back. That's how Epic's been getting exclusives. It's a really good deal for indie developers because they don't have to fuck around with or like worry about if their game gets clobbered. But I'm just like curious if that's something that this game had the benefit of, or if this is just like a complete shit conga line that just this is hilarious. Oh my god. It doesn't even look that bad. It looks like it'd be a pretty cool game, but yeah, if it's just like a fucking buggy disaster.
I was having like a decent time with it at the first, but like getting that bug and having the other, and then really like thinking about it, just like I was just like, God damn, this is just not a very polished experience. It drags on too long.
I'm seeing a lot of people remark on a lack of polish in the kind of summaries that are up here. 2 people who gave it an 8 out of 10, though, I am legitimately questioning. Someone gave it a 2 out of 10.
That's fair. I'd give it a 1 at this point.
A Knight's Quest is being sold on the eShop at all is ludicrous. Combat, enemy design, the camera, the save system, and the script were all in desperate need of more time. Sky9 releasing this title as is simply downright embarrassing. Beyond the lack of polish and the frequent bugs, this is a title that ignores 20 years of conventional game design philosophy and massacres itself in the process. Few have managed to mangle the basics of 3D combat so badly. Play anything else. A Knight's Quest is one of the worst games of 2019. Holy shit. This guy fucking hated it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a scorching.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
I can't believe how many people gave this game like a passing grade.
No.
With the fucking summary page having its score listed as low as it is, it doesn't seem like a lot of people who gave it a passing grade actually had their scores factored in.
I don't think they played the whole thing.
Maybe. Okay, well, fuck this game.
Yep. Outro time.
Fuck your coworker.
Yeah, no kidding. You can follow this podcast on Anchor, Spotify, or Stitcher.
Spoofy.
There it is. You can follow myself at Javim Animation. That's JAVM Animation. As I've said it near the end of this podcast, I'm definitely making a video. What I captured, that's shit.
Follow Jason for terrible shit posts. They're hilarious.
And with that, Steven, what's your shit?
FrostyLight on Twitter, FrostyLight.ca for my blog stuff, FrostyLight on Instagram. Don't have any new art. Well, actually, that's not true. I do have some new art. By the time that this goes live, you will have already seen it, probably. But if you haven't, no, I'm not going to spoil it. You guys have to go to any of the places that I post art and look for the fucking art. Yeah, and I've got reviews for Disc Room, or at least a mini review for Disc Room, and a full review for Them's Fightin' Herds coming out probably around the same time this podcast goes live. So give those a read for my full thoughts, because, well, I mean, you probably got most of them with Disc Room, but I'd still appreciate it if you took the time to read the thing that I was working on. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Go read my shit.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us this week, and stay frosty.